everybody. It's Jill with Angel Creations, and I'm coming to you from my living room today. I just want to give you a little update of the week I have had. I had a broken tooth. That's a long story short of it. And I woke up last Friday, and it felt like somebody had punched me in the jaw. So I tried to get into my dentist. I need to go to a dentist that takes a sliding scale or does some sliding scale thing because I'm a single lady. Yeah, I'm low income. That's the word. That's the truth of it. So I called for hours and they wouldn't even answer the phone. So, finally, I got in my car and I drove down there, and I went in there and said, "What's going on?" And I have an emergency because I have a broken tooth, and the throbbing was just getting worse by the hour. That's why I got in my car and drove there after they didn't answer the phone. So long story short, they could not help me until Wednesday the 18th. So I took that appointment for Wednesday the 18th. And even though I did not feel well, I continued to go to Wesley Chapel to the doctor appointment. And then I decided, while I was there, my plan normally is to hit up the Dollar Tree in Wesley Chapel, because sometimes I only get to Wesley Chapel one time a month. So even though I wasn't feeling well, I just put my smile on my face and I did my things. Well, luckily the doctor my regular PCP gave me an antibiotic for what we thought was an abscessed tooth. And problem being, he didn't give it to me strong enough to kick an infection because he's not a dentist. And actually, it wasn't my PCP, it was another guy filling in because mine wasn't there. And the second problem with that antibiotic turns out that I was allergic to it. So I got sick as a dog. So now I have a throbbing jaw, and actually the whole side of my face. I couldn't tell what hurt worse, my ear, my jaw. It just was so miserable. My whole side of my left side was just throbbing. I couldn't focus to read, never mind write. I didn't even want to read or write. I was in agony. Then I turned out to be sick with this medicine, so now I'm vomiting. Okay, so I'm vomiting. My face is throbbing. The pressure from vomiting is just, I would say something about a GUN right about now. If I didn't feel it would be insensitive to others, but I wanted one. And it was bad. So now I'm so thirsty because I'm vomiting, but every time I drink, as soon as what I've drank hits my stomach, it comes right back up. So now I'm not keeping anything down, and I am getting dehydrated. So this vomiting goes on for the course of 2 days. And I am basically in bed or in the bathroom. That's where I lived, in bed or in the bathroom. And I prayed like I have never prayed before. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And thought, why? am I going through this? Like, what's happening? What did I do wrong? Or I just prayed, please, Lord, you can take me out of this pain. Why aren't you? So we're a week later. It's not a week later yet. Let me go back. I'm sorry. I don't want to edit this, so please forgive me for my stumbling. As you can see, I'm still pretty swollen. But so I'm getting dehydrated. I can't keep anything down. My sister, my family is worried about me, and I can't really talk to them because I'm in so much pain. I can't even open my jaw. And so my roommate is giving them updates, and at one point everybody decides I need to go to the hospital, so off we go. My roommate drives me to the hospital, the Dade City Hospital where I live, in the town I live in. In my head, I'm out of my mind in pain, out of my mind. I have an ice pack wrapped up in a white towel covering, I can hardly describe, I can't describe it to you. It was a horror show. So I get into the hospital and sign in, and then basically they just called it a toothache. And there were people waiting that had been there since 4 o'clock that afternoon, and this is at like 9 o'clock at night, and I'm just thinking, this is, and it was so full. I mean, I have never seen, there were people waiting with pagers in their cars in the parking lot, and we were also full in the waiting room. So it took about an hour for me to even get triaged, called back just to get my vitals and to find out what was I here for. When I saw how they were reacting to me, I thought, they think I'm drug seeking and they're not going to help. They're calling it a toothache, and they're full of COVID. This hospital is overwhelmed with COVID patients, and the last thing they want to see is me coming in with a toothache. So after they triaged me, I told them to take me off their books. I was going to go home and just go to bed, and that's what I did. Next day, still all night vomiting, bed, bathroom, bed, bathroom. But by this time now, I am in a stage of the game that I didn't like, because I'm diabetic and I have experienced DKA before. DKA is diabetic ketoacidosis, and you can die from it. I was in a coma for 3 days with that. One of the things that happened when I was going into ketoacidosis was I got a heavy breathing. That's my dryer. I got a heavy breathing thing. And of course my blood sugars were through the roof. But I had a big back surgery, a big back fusion, and they had me on lots of steroids. So that's why my sugar went so high and put me into DKA. Normally that doesn't happen if you take good care of yourself. And I was in the hospital when that happened to me, so they weren't taking very good care of my blood sugar. So now my blood sugar is, my sugar is 230. I haven't eaten or held anything down for, this is going on the 3rd day, and I'm in bad shape. So now my roommate calls the ambulance because we don't want me to go back into DKA. And she says, you'll go right in. You won't have to sit in the waiting room, Jill, because the ambulance will take you right in and you'll be seen. I was so out of it. I want to tell you, as I sit here today, I want to tell you, I'm not sure I knew who I was anymore. Like, the throbbing going on in I just didn't know anymore what was reality and what wasn't. I was like, it was almost like an episode of The Twilight Zone to me. And so now the EMTs come, and they are so compassionate men. There were 4 of them, and they were so compassionate. They got, it took 4 sticks between both arms, but they finally got a vein and gave me fluids, and they gave me Zofran for nausea through that IV. The ride from my home in Dade City to the Dade City Hospital is approximately 5 minutes. I'm sorry for the shaking, and I'm holding my phone. 5 minutes, maybe. So I got fluids and Zofran in that 5-minute ride. When we finally get to, now it's a bumpy ride and all that, and I'm vomiting, and not a pretty sight. We finally get to the hospital, and the nurse tells them, she takes, they tell her what I'm coming in with, and I had a fever, and I was vomiting, and the other, all the things. And then she told them, okay, put her in a wheelchair and put her out in the waiting room. And I didn't think that they were even talking about me until they started getting me off the gurney, or I'll say hospital bed. I don't know if they say gurney anymore. And I was saying, no, I can't sit up. I need to lay down. And they go, I'm sorry, there's no beds. And I'm like, well, can I just stay right on this? And they're like, no, we have to go out on other calls. And there was a bed in the hallway, all made up, a hospital bed, and it was empty, and there was no one around. And I said, can I just lay on that bed? And they go, no. I go, why not? And they go, because there's nobody there to tend to you. Next thing I know, I'm put in a broken wheelchair with no foot pedals. I have bare feet as I came from my bed. I'm freezing cold because I have a fever. They unhook my IV, which is the best thing they could be doing for me at that moment. And they put me in a wheelchair and put me in the waiting room. And there were others in wheelchairs. And they threw a blanket on me and left me there. And I was throwing up. I was moaning and groaning. I couldn't control it. I was shivering. You try shivering with what I thought was an abscessed tooth, even worse. It was just horrific. And I kept feeling like, where are you, Lord? I don't understand any of this. I feel like there were people all around me. Some had been brought in by the ambulance like me 4 or 5 hours ago and hadn't been seen yet. there were little kids, there were big people, there were old people, there were mad people, there were people yelling and screaming at the hospital employees and demanding to be seen, and I'm over in the corner moaning and groaning with my vomit bag. And I remember finally opening one eye, because this whole side of my face was, so I remember opening an eye and seeing this, I don't know if he was a nurse or what he was, but he was behind the desk. And when I opened my eye and looked up, he was looking at me. And I did this. I'm like, come here. So he came over and I said, my feet are ice cubes on this cold floor. There was no foot pedals, and even then they would have been metal. I said, do you have any socks? And he goes, yes. And so he went and got me socks, and then some hospital lady came and put them on, because I don't think he wanted to put them on me. I don't know what he worked there for. I don't really know, but she was so compassionate, and I couldn't even lift my feet up. So there I sat for probably, time, I can't even tell you. I know it was probably a couple of hours. And then they finally, nothing happened, actually. I was there for a couple of hours, and I was so upset that I could have been at least getting the IV fluids while I sat there, but no, they had unhooked that from me in the back in the ER and put me in the waiting room, and they unhooked those fluids from me. So instead of even, it was just a horror show, and everyone screaming and kids crying, and I really thought some of it wasn't real. Like, I couldn't tell what's real. I don't want to sound dramatic, but it was dramatic. It was so dramatic. It was so life dramatic, that I just have to tell you that now that I'm 7 days after the fact, I know that the Lord was there with me. Because first, let's go back to the thing that I was allergic to the medicine. Well, I was upset, because the doctor didn't give me strong enough medicine to kill the infection. But on the same side of that, it would have made me more ill, or could have made me more ill. I was allergic to it. So God was saying, God's not giving me poison. I'm not saying that, but circumstances happen, and our angels and the Lord stepped in where he could, and I at least got medicine so that I didn't get worse. I wasn't getting any better, but the infection, I guess, wasn't getting any worse. The antibiotic that was making me sick was at least keeping the infection at bay. It was doing its job. It wasn't enough, but it was trying to work, even though it was making my body sick. So now I have to look at that and say, thank you, Lord. Thank you that my doctor didn't give me the right medicine or the right dose or all of that. I see a silver lining in that. And then I was so upset with God in the waiting room when they unhooked my IV and they weren't giving me fluids for those hours that I waited for nothing. But then I look at the other side of it and I say, thank God my roommate called the ambulance. I wouldn't have. Thank God she called the ambulance for me and I got 5 minutes of fluid and nausea medicine. Thank you, God, that I got 5 minutes, because that helped turn me around altogether. I wish that they had known at the hospital, or could have, I needed 10 minutes of somebody's time. I'm not saying I'm more important than other people, but what I feel kind of is like, there's a guy with COVID. Yes, this patient is going to be complex. He's going to need, chest x-rays, whatever the case may be. God love them, whoever, right? That's a complex case. That's going to take a long time. Get going. Stop them. But in between, see the cases that are going to take 10 minutes, like someone who just needs a stronger antibiotic and then it goes happily on their way home. Or the little girl that I think she had roseola, I think, because she had spots all over her and a high fever. But, some of these cases, the doctors could see them and they wouldn't be waiting. I mean, there was a guy out there with a swollen ankle. He really just needed an ankle x-ray and a cast. He had been there 9 hours when they parked me out there. His wife was off the wall yelling and screaming, and it was a Twilight Zone, definitely. Anyway, I decided, once I started turning it all around and looking at the positives, I felt better, right? I mean, no, I wasn't getting better. I was still on medicine that was making me sick, and it wasn't making me better, but it wasn't making my infection worse. So it was kind of holding it at bay. But all I was misery, madness, and just pissed off and just mean, green, and ugly. And I just was ready to go meet Jesus, truly. And then I said, okay, let's start counting blessings. I literally took my notebook out, because now I am starting to get a little bit better, because I got Zofran and 5 minutes of fluid. Thank you, God. I can't thank God enough for that 5 minutes of fluids I got via IV. And I literally took a notebook out and was scribbling down the things that I was thankful for. And I just started doing that. And then I did it with my roommate. I would say, okay, let's write a list of things I'm grateful for. Because by counting my blessings and focusing on the good things, I wasn't counting my problems and looking at all the misery. So I ended up going to the dentist on Wednesday, and he told me I was allergic to it was clindamycin they put me on. And he told me I had been allergic and all that. So he said we basically have to, so what I have is, I have an abscess, and it is under my eye tooth. But it's in my jaw so low, because eye teeth roots go very, very deep. And I have deep ones. Very deep. Of course. So what happened is, I had a broken tooth, and it caused me no pain at all. So I, like an idiot, put off taking care of it. It's my own fault. I am very upset with myself. I know better than to do that, and I did it, and now I'm paying for it. So what happened is somewhere I have a down in my jaw, underneath my root, next to the nerve of my 12th eye tooth, is a piece of broken, fractured tooth that has festered and caused an infection in my jaw down there. So the dentist said, for one thing, I cannot treat this today because you could see on my x-rays the infection was huge down there. I mean, I'm still swollen, but I'm on a better course of treatment now. But he said I can't, and then I'm like, no. I mean, I was like waiting patiently for Wednesday until they could pull this out and I would be out of my misery. No, he can't help me. For one thing, my infection was too bad. For another, I don't get numb. I have a very hard time getting numb to Novocaine, lidocaine, etc. So I told them going in that I needed a special medicine called Septicaine, which is fine. They have Septicaine. But if you already have a hard time getting numb and you have a bad infection in there, you most likely won't get numb anyway until that infection's gone. So I have to wait. And and the third thing was I have to see an oral surgeon because it's an eye tooth. So you can see in my, I should have asked, or I should have taken a picture of it with my phone, but so there's my broken tooth, and there's the nerve. You can see the nerve goes straight down through the middle of it. And you can see the root of the tooth goes very, very deep and sharp because it's an eye tooth. And then down the bottom, it looks like there's a golf ball with all kinds of arms, maybe like a baby octopus. And it's so close to the nerve. That's why I was having the extreme headache and earache and eye throbbing and all that left side of my head. The nerve was shooting, and so, you know, I may have just been, you know, he said, I would have thought if you called me saying you were vomiting, I would have thought this infection was making you sick. So, anyway, now it's not a free clinic, but we'll call it the sliding scale dentist that I have no choice but to go to. And thank you, Lord, that I am able to go to a sliding scale dentist. I'm very grateful, very, very heartfelt grateful that I have that in my life. But their oral surgeon only comes a couple times a month to visit this office here. So, and plus, it is, the priority is children in this office. And so there's a lot of children that take priority. So that's why it's very hard when you call all day and nobody answers the phone. It's because they're overwhelmed with children visits. And so you basically have to walk in with an emergency if you want to be seen as an adult. I'm just going to put it that way. It's the truth. So anyways, their dentist, their oral surgeon can't see me until August 31st. So they put me on a humongous horse pill of a 875 milligrams of amoxicillin. So I am feeling much better, still in pain, but nothing like I was. I can eat and hold down food. Not really thrilled about chewing, But I've been eating sweet potatoes and puddings and popsicles and stuff. So I forget what else. Bananas and, oh, I lived on Carnation Instant Breakfast for a couple of days. But onward and upward is the case. I am starting to feel much better and more alive and back to my old self. So I just wanted to come on here, though, and tell you what happened and where I've been so you'll understand that it seems like I get rolling and boom, something happens. And then I get rolling and boom, something happens again. But just wanted to let everybody know that I'm okay. I know some of you are also friends of mine on my Angel Creation Facebook page, where I did put a message up on there too. So some of you may already have known what's going on with me, but I want to thank you all for prayers, because I know who you are. Excuse me, I have a empty belly growling here. I know who you are, and I just want to say I appreciate all the prayers that I've been getting, both from here and Facebook, and just thanks for watching, and I hope that everybody is well. I am going to go back to saying wear your mask, because let me tell you, our two local hospitals are so overwhelmed with COVID cases that my roommate told me that they're going to be putting up a tent for the ER, because just to triage people. Her daughter is the supervisor or a supervisor of housekeeping at the next town over, the hospital Zephyr Hills, where they're going to be doing this with the tent. So it's really bad out there. And my grandson, who is 12, has COVID. He's fine. He's symptom free, but he did have COVID. A good friend, Kathy, her grandson, also has COVID, and he was sick with a fever, a headache, and sore throat. It's everywhere. When I was in the emergency room, it was so scary. It was like a bomb went off and there was no room for the soldiers, kind of thing. You know what I mean? It was just really bad. So please wear your mask. I know you don't like to. I don't like to either, but you know, I'm not going to tell you to get vaccinated, because I know that that is not my right to tell you. You know, everybody has to make that decision on their own, but I would like to tell you that I decided to be vaccinated, and I still choose to wear my mask anyway, because I got the Johnson & Johnson one, and people are getting sick with that. So that's what we're back to. Unfortunately, the pandemic around here is much worse than it was during its peak. So please be well. Thank you for your prayers. Wear your mask. Thank you for watching. Bye now.